Hey, welcome to another Raid Shadow Legends video. I'm Wood. In this series we're comparing two accounts that I started at the same time on the same day, and I'm playing the same way with one major difference. One account is free to play, the other has a monthly spending budget. It's day 60. Let's take a look at our progress. We have a green border around the free-to-play. Thanks for joining me. We have no border around the budget account, so as I go back and forth, you'll be able to see that. You can see we already collected our Yaga the Insatiable for day 60. Can't believe it's almost been 2 months, but it has. I just wanted to go over a couple of things today, sort of do a post-mortem on the shard pulls that we did yesterday. We opened shards on a 2x Ancient yesterday, and if you didn't see that video, we had some real super luck on the free-to-play account. I'll show you here. We were able to pull a Rotos, and in my zeal and my excitement, I forgot to kind of just tell you why he was so good and why I was so excited to get a Rotos. If you know Rotos, or if you've had a Rotos on your account, you know exactly. Somebody who commented said that Rotos was one of their first legendaries also. He's really, really good. He's not as good as he used to be. They sort of did a nerf to Rotos by releasing another champion, Ultimate Death Knight. Ultimate Death Knight is a really hard counter to Rotos. It's very difficult for him to deal with. But if you're not facing an Ultimate Death Knight, he's still just as good as he ever was. I want to go through just his skills really, really fast. On his A1, Terror Scourge attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Also has a 25% chance of granting an extra turn. So if you have some accuracy on him, this can be good for putting decreased defense. If you're not using him for PvP, when I first got Rotos, I could never imagine not using him for PvP. But now, because Ultimate Death Knight is so prevalent in PvP and in live arena, you can usually tell if you're setting up to use a Rotos team, and so they'll always counter with an Ultimate Death Knight. And so unless you're picking him last or able to do something like that, it's difficult to use him. It can be done, and I do it still a lot. The Ultimate Death Knight thing is real. And if you wanted to put some accuracy on him and use him in PvP, perfectly acceptable, because one of his passive here, and I'm just gonna go straight to the passive because it's important. I think a lot of people see Rotos as strictly a PvP champion, and it's easy to forget that he has this passive that does some damage reduction from bosses. Okay, so Spurn Oblivion will decrease damage from enemy hits so that incoming damage from a single hit will not exceed 50% of this champion's max HP. So one single hit can't do more than 50% of his max HP. That means if you're going to take down or face a Rotos, you have to kill him with more than one hit, unless you can stop him from using his passive. Which, another counter to Rotos, because this passive is so powerful, another counter to Rotos is Ramontu Drake's Blood that was released. Man, it doesn't seem like that long ago to me, but it's been a while ago. And everybody who has Ramontu that can use him in arena, and obviously with Polymorph that's a problem, but everyone who has Ramontu can shut off his passive. Rowdy Ronda Rousey can use that skill as well to block passive skills. And so anybody who has block passive skills can shut this off, but you have to do it before you hit him. Otherwise, you have to use at least 2 hits to kill him. That's why, multi-hitters are really good. Ronda also has multi-hits, and that's very good against Rotos in arena. The thing about this passive, that passive does not work on bosses, but the thing that does work with bosses is decreases the damage from bosses by 15%. So he takes less damage from bosses, and then decreases the damage taken from bosses by 30% if Siphi the Lost Bride is on the same team. So it's a great skill with Siphi. Also, Siphi has a skill that she removes all debuffs from Rotos when he takes a turn. So if they're on the same team and he has any debuffs on him, it doesn't stop the debuffs from going on to him. So between his turns, you can still debuff him. But if she's on the same team with him and he still has the debuff when he takes his turn, Siphi removes those as one of her passive kind of companion abilities that she has with him. So it's a really, really nice skill that they have that they use together. It's such a powerful passive. We're not done. So Rotos is A2, Vitality Plunder. Attacks one enemy, destroys the target's max HP by 20%. Then adds that HP to this champion's own max HP. So not only does he destroy the enemy's max HP by 20%, which is huge, he actually takes whatever he destroyed, whatever that 20% was, and then adds it to his own. And that increases his HP. And you'll see the damage that from this skill is based on his attack and his HP. So as he increases that HP, it's not his max HP, it's his current HP. So as he increases his HP, that he can do even more damage with this skill. In parentheses, cannot destroy a single champion's max HP by more than 60% in one battle. So you can't continue to destroy their HP by hitting them more than 3 times with this skill, but it still does a lot of damage. You can still keep doing damage to them, you're just not destroying their max HP anymore. Cannot increase this champion's max HP by more than 60,000. So he has this limit that he can do of 60,000 HP that he can increase during a I think it's during a whole battle, because this seems to work across rounds and everything. Correct me if I'm wrong on that if you know better, but destroys the max HP of bosses by 30% of the damage inflicted instead. So it doesn't just do a flat 20% of their max HP, it does 30% of the damage he inflicts with this skill. And so it's still good, but it's a lot less as a percentage of their overall health for bosses. This champion's max HP will be increased by 15,000 when this skill is used against bosses. And I do believe that that's a total. I don't think it's just one use of the skill, but I could be wrong about that too. Anyway, point is, on his A3, when it's ascended, he attacks one enemy, will ignore 60% of the target's defense. That's just with this skill. That's not with using, Helm Smasher and Savage or Lethal Set or anything that ignores other defense. He can continue to stack ignore defense on. So that's why he does this. He does just devastating damage with this skill sometimes. And you can see it's based on attack and HP as well. So as he increases his HP with his A2, he continues to do more damage with this skill. A lot of times, if he's able to use this skill, he usually just destroys the target, especially in arena. It's a super hard hit. But we're still not done. We'll also ignore unkillable and block damage buffs. So back when, before Stone Skin happened, this was just a really tough. Siphi double Rotos used to be a team in arena that would work really, really well if you were lucky enough to have 2 Rotos. But now, because of Ultimate Death Knight, you can't use him on a defense, because anybody who sees that is just going to put an Ultimate Death Knight in the team and then pretty much do whatever they want to you, because you won't have enough damage. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived if the champion has gained maximum amount of HP from the Vitality Plunder skill. Grants an extra turn if this skill kills an enemy. So not only does it do devastating damage, not only does it ignore defense and ignore unkillable and block damage, but if he kills somebody, he just gets another turn. And usually his A2 is back, because I don't know if you noticed, but the cooldown on his A2 books down to 2 turns. So he's got it available all the time. That's another reason why Rotos is a good counter towards lockout champions like Warlord and Yumiko. And now with Crixia also, without lockout abilities. With anything with lockout or cooldown or increased cooldown of skills, he can take, because you saw in his A1, he has a 25% chance of granting an extra turn. So he's just extra turning all the time. And that's the other thing with his passive. If you would have done more damage, if his HP is reduced by 50% by one of your hits, he just gets a turn, and it can destroy a whole team. It's if you don't have an Ultimate Death Knight against him, he can go through and just one-shot everybody on your team, because he still gets that extra turn if he uses A3. So if he uses A3 first, then he can use his A1 if the A2 is on cooldown. It's just he's really something. And a lot of people will put him in Relentless gear just to increase the chance of that, or There's so many things that you can do with Rotos. But his base HP is so low that when you build a Rotos, sometimes it makes a lot of sense to use flat HP on substats. Sometimes it actually works better because his max HP is so low it doesn't scale very well with percentage HP substats. A lot of times you want to look for flat HP. I know it sounds weird, but you want to look for flat HP because sometimes that increases it even more. You have to check, and I like to check, A/B comparison and see what's going to give him more HP, because you want him to have as much HP as possible at the beginning of the fight. He'll just do more damage that way, and then as the fight continues, he gets even stronger because he keeps increasing his HP with that A2. Anyway, Rotos is just a fantastic champion. I use him in Griffin. Sometimes use him in Ice Golem if we're doing one of those challenges where we're trying to block revive on the minions. I have very rarely seen him get up to that top max HP where it caps out and then he starts blocking revive. Very few times I've seen that happen in arena. If it's a really long fight and there's a lot of reviving going on and stuff, you will see that sometimes in arena, and that really comes in handy. But most of the time when we're using that, when he's been using that A2 a lot and killing a lot of enemy, and then he'll sometimes block the revive of those minions in the Ice Golem. So that's a really good place to use him as well. He can be used in so many places in the game. Like I could see him used in Eternal Dragon. Pretty much anywhere where you have an affinity advantage or where it's neutral. I can't recommend Rotos enough. I know that because he's been nerfed by the presence of Ultimate Death Knight, it's kind of a pain to use him sometimes in arena, but there are a lot of places that you can use a Rotos. The other thing that I noticed about one of the champions that we pulled yesterday was the Meat Carver. He's a rare from the Skinwalkers. Oh, I need to use my Master Ball. Okay. He's a rare from the Skinwalkers. And I just mentioned sort of in passing as I was doing the shard pulls, I was like, I've heard he's good, and that was kind of it. It was just something in the back of my head said, yeah, that's somebody you've heard, from somewhere else was good. And I don't honestly remember where it was or anything. I threw him into a Faction Wars because we had Skinwalkers open yesterday. And I just, I didn't really expect anything. And one of the other Skinwalkers died and he revives him. So apparently he has a revive. And we, before Hofori's the Tusked, the epic hippo in Skinwalkers, we really didn't have a reviver in Skinwalkers. So a lot of people were really excited about it, about Hofori's when he came out. Well, now this one is out and he has a single target revive. Revives an ally with 30% HP and 30% turn meter, places a 15% continuous heal buff on the revived ally for one turn. It's not the best revive in the game, but it's a revive in the Skinwalkers. And then he also has 30% increased defense on all allies for 2 turns and a 15% continuous heal. So a small version of both of those buffs for 1 turn, and that book's down to a 4-turn cooldown. He's not the best in the game, but to have just one reviver, that can really help you get through Faction Wars if you don't have any other options. If you've got one squishy damage dealer or something and you're just trying to finish your faction, or you're trying to do one of those quests where you have to get everybody through without losing anybody. So he can be useful, and I just noticed it just sort of accidentally. I didn't even read his kit before I threw him in there. Attacks one enemy 2 times. This is A1. Jagged Cut. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit heals this champion by 2% of their max HP. So a little bit of a heal. So, he can be good. And then Feed the Herd. This is a passive that's whenever a 15% continuous heal buff placed by an ally from the Skinwalkers faction expires, is removed or is stolen, places a 7.5% continuous heal buff on that ally for 1 turn. Okay, so the continuous heal is the big version. Sorry, I didn't mean to. and this continuous heal is the small one. So if continuous heal expires or is removed, you just get the little continuous heal just automatically. But it looks like it's on a cooldown. No, it isn't on a cool. No, it's not on a cooldown. It just happens. Yeah, so that's a nice passive. So yeah, he just gets that when he's ascended. It's kind of cool to have an option like that when you start getting deep into Faction Wars and you've got a bunch of level 50s and you're just trying to get the stars. You're just trying to get your Lydia. having just one reviver and build them tanky so that they can support your damage dealers. It's a really nice, it's a really nice one to have. So I'm going to hold on to him and use him unless we pull something better or whatever. But I just thought I'd point that out. The other thing, okay, I'm going to switch over to the budget account now. I totally missed this, and I if you caught it, good for you, because I totally missed this. But we pulled yesterday a Necro Hunter, and I had totally forgotten. Last week we pulled some souls, and I just didn't even catch it. But look at what we have available for Necro Hunter. We have a 5-star soul for Necro Hunter. And that actually influences my decision as to whether or not I want to build a Necro Hunter on this account. Normally, I wouldn't probably try, put a bunch of resources into building an epic, single target damage dealer, which I'm unless I'm wrong, I think that's what he is. Let's look. One enemy 2 times. So he does have a double hit. That's something you could use on a Rotos, like which does a 50% chance, books up to 65% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. That's a pretty solid A1, and if it hits hard, and that's the thing, is I have heard that he does hit hard, that's his thing. And then with his A2 Gravestorm, he attacks one enemy, attacks all enemies 1 time if the attack is critical. So he gets an extra attack on all enemies if he gets a crit. So that is an AoE. So he's not just a single target, which I was wrong. Tombstalker. Ascended, he attacks 1 enemy, places perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns if the attack is critical. So he gives himself a little bit of protection. I'm assuming that's because he's probably a pretty squishy damage dealer. His aura is a 19% crit rate in all battles. So if you were going to use him as your lead, you could build him with a little less crit rate. I don't usually like to do that because I typically want a increased speed aura or an increased resistance or increased accuracy or something. If I've got to go to increased crit rate, that means all your other stats have to be solid, and that's kind of hard to do. And it seems to be a little bit easier to just put 100% crit rate on everybody. But that's beside the point. Because I have the 5-star blessing for him already, that maybe means that I need to build a Necro Hunter, because it would really certainly help his damage quite a bit. So I'll probably test him out a little bit in Faction Wars, or run him through some levels of Doom Tower or something like that, just to see what he can do. But that was kind of a fun discovery. I just went into the Altar of Souls and I was just looking at, okay, what do I have again, and and there was a red dot on him on Awaken, and I thought, wait, what is this? So that's really nice. It's nice to have those souls, and it starts to influence your decision as to which champions you're going to start building. Those are the main things I discovered since pulling shards yesterday. I just wanted to go over it real quick, and I wanted to mark that we hit day 60. We got our Yaga the Insatiable. So we're a couple of days away now from spending a little bit more money. We hit our last day of the daily gem pack on the budget account. So we'll be re-upping the daily gem pack on the 1st of the month, and the next Forge Pass, I think definitely, if it's any kind of good set, that Forge Pass was so clutch for champ training and for silver. I was able to do a lot more on the budget account because of that. So I think that is a pretty efficient place to put the money, as long as we're spending it anyway. I would say don't spend the money if you can avoid it, but if you are spending the money, I think that's one of the most efficient places to put the money in the game. Thank you for joining me. I've been Wood, and I appreciate you.